The text message wasn't meant for her. Olivia had simply picked up her husband's phone while he was in the shower, intending to silence a ping. But what flashed on the screen wasn't a notification. It was betrayal. "Last night was perfect. I can still smell you on me." Olivia froze. Her breath caught in her throat, her fingers trembling as she read it again. It wasn't just any message. It was from his best friend, Marcus. The man who stood beside him on their wedding day. The man who had toasted to eternal brotherhood. As water rushed in the background, she stood paralyzed, her whole world tilting. 1,000 memories ricocheted in her mind. Family dinners, shared vacations, drunken poker nights. She wanted to scream, but all she managed was a whisper. No, this isn't real. But it was. In that moment, Olivia's life shattered, not just by the man she loved, but by the one she trusted to protect that love. And so began the unraveling. The moment passed in agonizing silence. Olivia sat hunched on the edge of the bed, phone still in her lap, her mind swirling. She wasn't crying, yet. Her body seemed frozen in time, wrapped in invisible ice. The sound of the shower turning off jolted her back to the present. She scrambled up, placed the phone back on the nightstand, exactly how it had been, and stood in the doorway as Daniel walked out. Towel wrapped around his waist, face casual and warm. "Morning, babe," he said, walking over to kiss her. She didn't move. Her lips didn't meet his. Daniel paused, confused, but she gave him a smile, a fake one so thin it could crack. "I'm making coffee," she said softly, and turned. Downstairs, the espresso machine sputtered to life, but her hands shook too much to pour. That was the beginning of her mask, the moment she chose silence over explosion. Not yet. She needed time. Time to understand how the man she built her life with could betray her, with him. The mask became easier by the hour. Olivia moved through the morning like an actress trapped in the wrong script. She smiled when Daniel joked, nodded when he made plans, even laughed once, but it didn't reach her eyes. Every sound he made, his familiar laugh, the way he hummed while brushing his teeth, now felt like background noise in a film she didn't recognize. In her mind she rewound everything, the way Marcus had hugged her tightly last week, the glances that lingered too long, the secretive tone they both shared when talking around her. How had she not seen it? Or maybe she had, and chose not to. At lunch, Daniel casually mentioned a poker night coming up. "You should invite Marcus," she said flatly. He paused, then nodded, too quickly. That was the first crack. Olivia's mind sharpened. If she was going to confront this, she needed more. Proof. Pattern. Dotting. Weakness. A game had begun, and she was no longer a bystander. That evening, Olivia found herself scrolling through old photos on her laptop. Daddy around. Birthday parties, housewarmings, hikes with friends. Marcus was in nearly every frame, sometimes standing next to Daniel, sometimes beside her. One photo made her pause, a candid shot of Marcus looking at her while she laughed with her husband. His gaze wasn't friendly, it was fixated. And she had missed it. She leaned closer, zoomed in. The hunger in his eyes chilled her. And suddenly, memories aligned like puzzle pieces. The night Marcus had stayed late to help clean up. The whiskey-slick stories they'd shared. The one time he touched her back a little too long. But she brushed it off, until now. She saved the photos separately. If she was going to face this, she'd need reminders. Proof that the betrayal had been simmering long before it exploded. She wasn't just betrayed. She had been watched. Desired. Targeted. Olivia opened a private folder and dragged the photo in. She labeled it, Evidence 1. Her fingers hovered over the keyboard before she typed the second title, The Real Marcus. The room was quiet, save for the hum of her laptop and the distant sounds of her husband downstairs watching TV. She glanced at the staircase. Should she go down? Pretend? Or scream? Instead, she opened a new document and began writing. Not a diary entry. A timeline. When it started, what she remembered, how it evolved. She listed dates, events, expressions. This wasn't just heartbreak. It was a map of how her trust had been dismantled by the two men she trusted most. Olivia wasn't ready to confront them, not yet. But she would be. She was building her arsenal. With each click of the keys, her pain turned to focus. Her silence wasn't weakness. It was strategy. Olivia began studying her marriage like a case file. She wasn't just heartbroken. She was investigative. Every detail became a clue. Every routine, a pattern. She noticed how Daniel's phone was suddenly always face down. How he smiled at her just a second too late. How his texts were shorter, colder. She paid attention to Marcus too. His voice on speaker sounded overly neutral, his visits less frequent but loaded with awkward tension. And when they did see each other, Olivia noticed them avoid eye contact, as if afraid a single glance might betray the truth. But Olivia didn't flinch. She responded with more warmth, more patience. Not because she had forgiven them, but because she needed to stay ahead. She was walking through fire without letting the flames show. She had transformed from the betrayed wife into a silent strategist. If they thought they could fool her, they were wrong. She wasn't hunting for revenge yet. She was searching for clarity and preparing for war. Later that week, Marcus came over unannounced. Olivia opened the door with a smile so polished it could cut glass. Marcus hesitated at the threshold, eyes darting. "Hey, is Daniel around?" he asked, voice unusually flat. "He's running late," Olivia replied smoothly, stepping aside. The tension between them was immediate and electric, silent, dangerous. They sat in the living room with the television on mute, a show playing images no one watched. Olivia leaned forward, locking eyes with Marcus. "You've been distant lately," she said calmly. Marcus tensed, then gave a hollow laugh. "Just work, stress." Olivia nodded, pretending to believe him. In her chest her heart raced but her face never cracked. She watched him fidget, noticed the sweat on his brow. Marcus wasn't just guilty, he was unraveling. She didn't need a confession. She needed him to expose himself, one twitch at a time. She was learning his fear and cataloging it. That night, Olivia couldn't sleep. The room was silent, but her mind was deafening. She lay beside Daniel, who slept peacefully, unaware that his world was already shifting. She watched his chest rise and fall, studied the curve of his jawline, the arm stretched lazily across the sheets. This was the man who once wrote poems on napkins for her, who cried when they lost their first pregnancy. How could the same hands now hold such betrayal? Olivia felt both love and rage in the same breath. It was dizzying. She reached out, not to touch him, but to hover just above his skin, close enough to remember, far enough to protect herself. A tear slid down her cheek, and she wiped it away quickly. There would be no breakdown. Not yet. Not while he slept so easily beside the ruins he caused. Olivia turned her back to him. Sleep would not come, but resolve was wide awake. The next morning, Olivia met her best friend, Camille, at their favorite cafe. Sunlight streamed through large windows as Olivia stirred her coffee absently. Camille studied her. "You haven't blinked since I sat down," she said, voice gentle but probing. Olivia smiled faintly. "Do you think it's possible to grieve someone who's still in your life?" Camille blinked, then leaned in. "What happened?" Olivia paused, then shook her head. "I can't say it yet, but I will. Just not now." Camille nodded, not pushing. They sat in silence, the kind only old friends could share. Olivia didn't need to explain everything. Camille's presence grounded her, reminded her who she was outside of betrayal. For the first time in days, Olivia felt like herself again. Not the wife. Not the investigator. Just Olivia. And that was enough, for now. She needed strength, and Camille's quiet loyalty gave her that in spades. When Olivia returned home, she found Daniel in the garage, fiddling with tools he didn't need. His smile was forced. "Marcus is coming over later. Poker night," he said. Olivia gave a small nod. "Great," she replied. Her tone was neutral, but her heart thundered. She now had a chance to observe them together, live. That evening, the house buzzed with low laughter and chips clinking. Olivia played the role of the dutiful wife, offering drinks and snacks. But her eyes saw everything. The way Daniel's hand trembled when he passed cards. How Marcus wouldn't look her in the eye. She didn't need cameras. The truth was in the body language. A silent language only betrayal could write. Olivia watched, gathered, and catalogued. She was no longer mourning. She was documenting. Preparing. When Durabis died. The storm hadn't arrived yet, but she was already the eye at its center. 2 days after poker night, Olivia received a message that made her blood freeze. An anonymous tip. A single sentence. "Check his cloud backup. He's not as careful as he thinks." No sender. No explanation. Olivia stared at it, then opened Daniel's old tablet, long forgotten, since to his accounts. Within minutes, she found a folder tucked away, disguised under a generic name. Inside, screenshots, messages, photos, videos. Her breath caught. There it was, confirmation in full color. Daniel and Marcus together. Private moments, hotel rooms, clipped calls. The intimacy between them wasn't just lust. It was emotional. Real. Wow. Olivia's knees buckled. Her suspicions weren't exaggerations. They were understatements. She wanted to scream, but she didn't. Instead, she saved everything. Not out of vengeance, but for truth. For clarity. For strength. What shattered her now would become armor later. She looked in the mirror across the room. "You're not breaking," she whispered. "You're transforming." Later that night, Daniel returned home to find Olivia in the kitchen, casually sipping tea. She smiled. "How was your day?" He seemed relieved. She wasn't storming, wasn't crying. "Busy," he said, setting his bag down. Olivia leaned against the counter, watching him. "Have you ever lied to protect someone?" she asked quietly. Daniel paused. "I think everyone has, even if it destroys someone else," she added. He looked at her longer now. "Olivia, where's this coming from?" She smiled again, softer this time. "Just wondering." She stepped past him, her hand brushing his briefly. She could feel his pulse, jumpy. He was a man walking on a thin layer of ice, and he didn't even know it was already cracking. Olivia wasn't going to accuse him. Not yet. She wanted to see how far he'd go. How deep he was willing to dig his own grave before she stopped smiling. The next day, Olivia met Marcus at a downtown bar under the guise of catching up. He seemed uneasy but intrigued. She wore confidence like a weapon, sipping her drink slowly as he talked. "Daniel told me you've been distant," Marcus said cautiously. Olivia smiled. "I've been processing a lot." Her tone was deliberate. She wanted to see if he'd crack. "You know, trust is funny," she added. "It breaks quietly. You don't even hear it snap until it's already gone." Marcus swallowed hard, eyes darting. "Is everything?" Olivia tilted her head. "No, Marcus. Everything's very, very wrong." The silence between them thickened. She leaned forward. "Tell me, do you regret anything?" His mouth opened, but no sound came. She watched him, his panic, his guilt, his silence. Olivia didn't need to confront him yet. This was the rehearsal. The real storm was still brewing. Back home, Olivia reviewed the footage again, every text, every image, every video. She catalogued them like a historian documenting the rise and fall of an empire. Each piece was dated, organized, labeled. The betrayal wasn't just physical. It was methodical, emotional, calculated. That realization cut deeper than anything else. She didn't just lose a husband, she lost a version of herself. A woman who believed in him. In them. She printed a few stills and taped them behind a closet panel, hidden but reachable. Her quiet war room. Then she paused, hand trembling over one image, Daniel kissing Marcus with a tenderness she hadn't seen in years. Her breath hitched. Was it possible they had something more? Something real? That thought nearly broke her. But she steadied herself. She would not romanticize betrayal. No matter what it looked like on screen, it had destroyed her. That was all the truth she needed. That weekend, Olivia drove out of town alone. She needed space. Needed to breathe. The highway stretched endlessly ahead, trees blurring into green ghosts as her mind swirled. She stopped at a cliffside rest point, a place she and Daniel had once visited years ago. Back then, he'd kissed her forehead and promised they'd never lie to each other. She sat on a bench overlooking the valley, wind pushing her hair back. She whispered to the open air, "I didn't change, you did." A hawk circled above, its shadow fleeting over the rocks. Olivia closed her eyes and felt her pain settle, not vanish. The rage was quieter now. Sharper, thought. It wasn't grief anymore. It was preparation. She wasn't asking, why, anymore. She was asking, what now? The next act of her life wouldn't be reaction. It would be intention. Her heart still bled, but her mind, it was sharper than ever. The twists didn't come from Daniel. It came from Marcus' partner, Julia. One morning, Olivia received an unexpected knock. There she stood, Julia pale, lips tight, holding a manila envelope. "You don't know me well," she said flatly, "but I think we've both been played." They sat across from each other in Olivia's living room, silence thicker than the air. Julia opened the envelope. Inside were printouts, photos, message logs, hotel receipts. She'd done her own digging, and it painted a picture far uglier than Olivia imagined. The affair wasn't new. It had started 2 years ago. And worse, there were others. Daniel hadn't just betrayed Olivia with Marcus. He'd cheated on Marcus too. With strangers. With apps. Marcus knew, and had stayed silent. That was the real twist. Marcus wasn't just a participant. He was complicit. Enabler. Palnejostri. Olivia felt the room spin. Her rage redirected. The betrayal was layered, tangled, and far more venomous than she realized. As Julia left, she turned and said something Olivia would never forget. "You were collateral, so was I." Then, she was gone. Olivia stood frozen, envelope clutched to her chest. The betrayal wasn't just personal, it was systemic. Daniel and Marcus had manipulated not just her, but everyone around them. Olivia walked upstairs and entered the guest room, her sanctuary now. She laid the documents across the bed. Her hands trembled as she aligned them into rows. Each page was a new scar. But Olivia didn't cry. Not anymore. She studied them like a map, plotting paths through pain. Her love had died, but her clarity was being born. And clarity, she realized, was stronger than grief. Stronger than rage. She whispered, "You chose your lies. Now I choose my truth." With that, she gathered everything into a folder marked simply, "Final Proof." There would be no more silence. Soon, there would be reckoning. Olivia called a private therapist, someone she hadn't seen in years. In the quiet, book-lined office, she let herself speak freely for the first time. "I'm not here to fix a marriage," she said, voice firm. "I'm here to make sure I don't lose myself trying to survive it." The therapist nodded, saying nothing, just listening. Olivia spoke for nearly an hour, about Daniel, about Marcus, about Julia, about herself. "I feel like I've been rewritten," she said softly. "Like someone stole my pages and changed the ending without asking me." Her voice cracked only once, but she held her ground. This wasn't weakness. It was rebuilding. Brick by brick. She left the office lighter, not healed, but hollowed in a way that let air back in. She could breathe again. And in that breath she found something close to hope. Not in Daniel. Not in closure. Huh? In herself. That night, Olivia laid in bed and replayed every lie she'd swallowed. Every smile Daniel gave her while texting someone else. Every time Marcus hugged her goodbye with guilt buried under charm. She let herself feel the humiliation, the disbelief, the ache. Then she let it burn. And from that fire, something fierce emerged. Olivia reached for her laptop and opened a new folder. This time it wasn't just a timeline. It was a declaration. She titled it, "The End I Choose." Inside it, she began drafting a letter, part confession, part confrontation. She wouldn't send it yet. But every sentence carved truth from her ribs. Every word gave shape to her new spine. She no longer needed to wonder if Daniel would change. He already had. Just not for her. And she would no longer bend to keep the illusion alive. If destruction had come, she would choose what rose from it. The next morning, Olivia asked Daniel to meet her in the backyard. It was quiet, the sun not yet fully risen. Dew still clung to the grass. Daniel walked out in sweatpants, yawning, unaware of what was coming. Olivia stood beside the patio table, folder in hand. "We need to talk," she said. He blinked at her seriousness. "What's wrong?" She held up the folder. "Everything." She didn't raise her voice. She didn't cry. She opened the folder and let the pages fan out across the table. Photo. Receipt. Screenshot. Daniel's face changed from confusion to fear. You went through my stuff," he stammered. Olivia's eyes didn't blink. "You built our life on lies. I'm just sifting through the rubble." He reached for the pages, but she stopped him. "No more pretending," she said. "Now you speak, and you don't get to lie." His mouth opened, but nothing came. The silence was her first real victory. Daniel didn't deny it. Not anymore. After Olivia laid it all out, he sat down slowly, his mouth opening and closing like a man drowning without water. "It wasn't supposed to happen like this," he muttered. Olivia crossed her arms, unmoved. "Then how was it supposed to happen? You betray me quietly and I thank you for the decency." He looked up, eyes red. "I didn't mean to hurt you." That sentence, more than anything, ignited something in her. "You meant to keep it hidden," she snapped. "You chose your comfort over my reality. Don't call that love." Daniel buried his face in his hands. "Marcus. It started with Marcus. But it didn't stay there." Olivia felt the final blades slide in. He wasn't even faithful to the man he cheated with. Everything, the friendship, the marriage, the life, was dust now. And Olivia knew there was no going back. Only forward. Alone. The next evening, Olivia texted Marcus. "Come over. We need to talk." He arrived just past sunset, tension in every step. Olivia met him at the door, not with anger, but with silence. He followed her into the living room, where the folder sat again on the table. "Daniel told me everything," she said. "Marcus didn't speak. You were my friend. You were at our wedding." Her voice wavered once, then steadied. "You stood beside me while you were sleeping with him." Marcus finally exhaled, guilt written in every line of his face. "I loved him," he said, voice barely audible. "Then why destroy him?" Olivia asked. "Why lie to all of us?" He lowered his eyes. "Because I didn't think I deserved anything honest." Olivia stared. There it was. The rot inside Marcus wasn't lust, it was self-loathing. "You don't get to use your pain as a weapon," she said. "Not anymore." Marcus stood quietly, eyes wet, but Olivia didn't comfort him. That chapter was gone. "I want to hear it," she said. "All of it. The truth finally." Marcus nodded, then unraveled. He spoke of how it began, an accidental kiss at a drunken New Year's party, a secret they swore was a mistake. But the mistake turned into weekends, into cover stories, into lies layered so deep they lost track. "Daniel said he'd you," Marcus whispered. But he never did. Olivia swallowed hard. And you waited, I hoped. The room pulsed with that word. Hope. It wasn't just betrayal. It was delusion. They had gambled with her life, believing she wouldn't notice. That she wasn't worthy of truth. She stepped back, jaw set. You were never my enemy, Marcus, she said. But you chose to become him. And with that she walked away, leaving him in the ruins he helped build. That night, Olivia packed a bag. Just a small one. Essentials, nothing sentimental. She didn't tell Daniel she was leaving, not yet. This wasn't a grand exit. It was a quiet reclaiming. In her room, she folded clothes with methodical precision, placing the timeline, the photos, the truth, all of it, at the bottom. She looked around once more. The bed they'd shared, the walls that heard their laughter and lies. There was no anger left. Just clarity. This house had become a museum of betrayal. She refused to live among ghosts. She left the key on the hallway table and walked out, the click of the front door closing louder than any scream. Outside, the night air was crisp, clean. It tasted like the beginning. She didn't know where she was going yet. But she finally knew what she was walking away from. And that was enough. Olivia drove without music. Just the sound of tires on pavement and her own thoughts. At a rest stop hours later, she parked under a canopy of trees and stepped out. Stars glittered above, indifferent and eternal. She sat on the hood of her car, wind brushing her cheeks. For the first time in weeks, there were no lies clinging to her. No glances to decode. No fake smiles. Just breath. Just space. She pulled out her phone and deleted Daniel's number. Then Marcus's. Then opened her notes and wrote 4 words. I survived their silence. She didn't know what healing would look like yet. But she was no longer waiting for someone else to offer it. Olivia smiled. Not big, not dramatic, but honest. And in that moment, beneath the stars and the hush of midnight, she began to feel like herself again. Not broken. Becoming. Weeks passed. Olivia didn't rush healing. She didn't script her next steps. She found a quiet Airbnb by a lake, surrounded by pines, far from familiar faces and heavier memories. The days were slow, the nights cooler. She read books again. Cooked for herself. Sat in silence without feeling hollow. The woman in the mirror was still healing, but she had eyes that no longer scanned for lies. One afternoon, she stood by the water, toes in the cold shallows, watching the sky shift from blue to gold. For the first time, she didn't think of Daniel or Marcus. She just thought about Olivia. Not who she had been. Not who she was supposed to be. But who she might become, now that her story was hers alone. She whispered to the trees, "Thank you for breaking me open. I can finally breathe in the pieces." The wind answered like a promise. One evening, Olivia received a voicemail, Daniel. His voice was tired, broken. "I don't expect forgiveness. I miss you. I miss us." She replayed it once, then deleted it. She didn't cry. Not anymore. Instead, she walked outside with her journal and wrote for hours. Not about him, but about her. Her patterns, her blind spots, her strength. Healing wasn't linear, and she knew that now. But silence no longer frightened her. Loneliness didn't feel like abandonment, it felt like clarity. Every page she filled was a promise to herself. To stay awake. To stay honest. She wasn't trying to reclaim what was lost. She was discovering what was always there, beneath the noise, beneath the betrayals. She wrote until the sky turned violet and the pen ran dry. She smiled. Even her silence had weight now. And it belonged only to her. Camille came to visit. Olivia met her at the cabin door with a tight hug that lasted longer than words. They sat by the fireplace that night, drinking tea, their laughter echoing under wooden beams. Camille listened, truly listened, as Olivia told everything. You were the only one who never lied to me, Olivia said, voice cracking gently. Camille smiled. Because I saw you, even when you didn't. They didn't solve anything that night. They didn't need to. But the warmth between them melted some of the oldest ice. Olivia felt less alone. She didn't need to carry the weight alone anymore. The world had broken her open, but it had also shown her who could still hold the truth without flinching. She looked at Camille and knew trust could still exist. It would just be smaller, slower, but more sacred than ever. The next day, Olivia found herself sketching. She hadn't drawn since college. Her hand trembled at first, but soon the pencil danced freely. Trees, water, light, all came alive on the page. It wasn't about perfection. It was about process, expression, release. She realized how much of herself she had buried in being someone's wife, someone's anchor. Now she was creating again, something entirely her own. The sketchbook became her new mirror. It showed her what words couldn't: resilience in charcoal, tenderness in shading, hope in every soft line. She wasn't defined by what had been done to her. She was rebuilt by what she chose to do next. Olivia tore one page from the book, a lakeside sketch with a single word beneath it: reclaim. She pinned it by the window, letting it flutter gently in the morning breeze. She was no longer surviving. She was sculpting something new. You what? Before leaving the cabin, Olivia walked down to the dock one last time. The water was still, the air thick with mist. She carried a small stone in her hand, smooth, cold. On it, she had written a name: Olivia. She whispered softly, "Not the wife, not the victim, just me." Then gently, she tossed it into the lake. The ripples spread wide and slow, until the surface was calm again. She stood there, breathing in the silence. Her silence. It wasn't an ending. It was a threshold. Her past didn't vanish, but it no longer held her hostage. The woman who had once begged for truth now walked freely in it. As the sun rose higher, painting the lake in gold, Olivia turned back toward the cabin with her bags packed, spine straight. She was done mourning who they made her. She was now choosing who she would become. And that was everything. Olivia returned to the city quietly, not to reclaim the life she left, but to rewrite it. She didn't call Daniel. She didn't announce her arrival. Instead, she moved into a small apartment nestled above a bookstore. The space was hers, every inch untouched by betrayal. Her days were quiet, her evenings filled with candles and music she once loved but had forgotten. She started freelancing again, design work, small projects, things that made her feel creative and capable. At night she walked through the city like a ghost rediscovering life. Every street corner felt like a choice. Every step, a reclamation. She wasn't waiting for closure anymore. She had stopped chasing apologies. In their place she found movement. She wasn't where she wanted to be yet, but she was no longer lost. And that shift, subtle, strong, was everything. One afternoon she spotted Marcus from across a crowded cafe. Night. He looked thinner, older somehow. Their eyes met for a moment, just a second, but it was enough. He looked down. Olivia didn't flinch. She turned away first. There was no anger left, just distance. Later, she wrote in her journal, "Forgiveness is not reconciliation, it's release." That day, she walked home through the park, the sound of children playing, dogs barking, life moving forward all around her. She sat on a bench, let the breeze move through her hair. She didn't need to revisit pain to prove she'd healed. The past no longer required her attention. She had learned the difference between remembering and reliving. Olivia inhaled deeply, grounding herself in the now. The woman who once trembled behind a mask was gone. This version didn't need to hide. Daniel eventually reached out. A letter this time. Handwritten. He said he was in therapy. That he now understood what he broke, and why. He apologized, not for the betrayal alone, but for making her question her worth. Olivia read it twice. then folded it and placed it in a drawer. She didn't need answers from him. She already had her own. Still, something in the honesty of the words allowed her to close a door inside herself. Not slam it. Just close it gently. Healing, she realized, wasn't always about confrontation. Sometimes, it was about allowing a wound to scar in peace. That night, she lit a single candle by the window and let the flame flicker while she sipped tea. There was no grand gesture. Just warmth. And the understanding that not all endings need fire. Some just need quiet. Spring arrived without fanfare. Olivia began hosting small art workshops in her new neighborhood, mostly women, mostly stories like hers. She watched them laugh, cry, and create. In helping them rebuild, she rebuilt herself. Hers had become purpose. One afternoon, a younger woman stayed behind after class. "How did you get past it?" she asked. Olivia paused. "I didn't get past it. I walked with it, until it stopped walking ahead of me." The girl nodded, tearful. Olivia placed a hand on hers. "You're not broken, you're becoming." That evening, Olivia added a new sketch to her wall. A phoenix, rising, not from ashes, but from silence. She stared at it for a long time. The version of her that had once whispered in bathrooms, cried into tea, and typed timelines of betrayal, was gone. She wasn't only surviving now. She was building. And in that building, she had found grace. On the anniversary of her discovery, Olivia returned to the lake. The same dock. Whoa. The same stillness. She stood at the edge, hair windblown, eyes dry. In her pocket she carried a single note. It read, "Thank you for ending what wasn't meant to last." She folded it into a paper boat and placed it gently on the water. It drifted out slowly, then caught a breeze and turned. She didn't chase it. She let it go. She watched until it was a dot in the distance, then nothing. Pain hadn't vanished, but it no longer anchored her. It was part of her now. Just not the loudest part. She turned back from the water, lighter, stronger, whole, not because she was unbroken, but because she had chosen not to stay shattered. And as she walked up the path toward the future, the final line played in her mind like a mantra. "You don't get to destroy me, I get to rebuild."